strictly for the purposes of financial gain for those who have access to her estate, including Clive Davis.
Including Clive Davis.
Let's talk about the filth that's starting to come out in the early days of the Diddy trial. This, of course, is P. Diddy. Surprise, surprise, he's a creep. Surprise, surprise, he's done horrible things.
The music industry has always been a glittering facade, a world where fame, wealth, and power shine bright under the spotlight. But behind the polished veneer lies a labyrinth of secrets, betrayals, and unspoken truths. Few stories expose the industry's dark underbelly as vividly as the one we're about to tell. It's a tale of rebellion, corruption, and an audacious fight against exploitation. And at its heart is TLC, the girl group that dared to defy the odds. This is not just another chapter in music history, it's a revelation that shakes the very foundation of an empire built on manipulation and control.
I'm sorry, I'm just I'm in this moment right now. This is crazy. Sorry. People don't really know how much what it does to you when something that you love is taken from you and thrown away like it don't even matter, and then they move on with their lives and you're stuck. You're stuck during those years. You're still stuck 21.
Let's start with the backdrop. Sean Diddy Combs, a name synonymous with power and decadence. A man who turned Bad Boy Records into a billion-dollar empire. For decades, Diddy reigned supreme, untouchable, his influence stretching across music, fashion, and culture. But as the world now knows, his empire wasn't as unshakable as it seemed. The recent Homeland Security raids on his multi-million-dollar homes in Los Angeles and Miami have painted a chilling picture of a man whose legacy is now entangled in allegations of coercion, human trafficking, and systemic abuse. Helicopters circled overhead, federal agents swarmed the properties, and police dogs combed the premises as the world watched the takedown of a mogul who once seemed invincible.
Centerpiece of a lot of what happened during direct testimony were freak-offs. And what the prosecution tried to show was that he forced and/or coerced her into doing these freak-offs. And we've talked about this earlier this week, that at least my opinion is that in a lot of these, the prosecution just didn't close the loop. It was something she felt.
The investigation is no ordinary scandal. It's a federal takedown of one of the most powerful figures in entertainment. Homeland Security agents, reportedly acting on information from insiders, executed coordinated raids as part of a human trafficking probe. The timing was no coincidence. It came just months after Diddy quietly settled a lawsuit with his former partner Cassie Ventura, who accused him of years of physical abuse, substance use, and forced participation in freak-offs, substance-fueled intimate gatherings that, according to court documents, left her traumatized and shattered. Cassie's settlement, reportedly worth $20 million, was only the beginning. Her courage to come forward opened the floodgates for other victims, emboldened by her story to break their silence. Multiple lawsuits followed, each more damning than the last, with allegations spanning decades and implicating Diddy's closest associates. But Diddy's downfall is only the tip of the iceberg. The shadow of Clive Davis, the legendary executive behind Arista Records, looms large over this story. Davis, a man whose influence over artists like Whitney Houston, Alicia Keys, and Kelly Clarkson is unparalleled, was more than just a mentor to Diddy. Emerging rumors and whispers from insiders suggest a far murkier relationship, one built on exploitation and secrecy. Suge Knight, the infamous Death Row Records founder, recently alleged on his prison podcast that Davis and Diddy shared not just a professional bond, but a deeply personal one. Knight's claims, while unverified, have ignited speculation about the power dynamics in their partnership. Could Clive Davis have been the puppet master, pulling strings behind the scenes, shielding Diddy from accountability while reaping the benefits of his success?
He needed her back.
Oh, yeah.
He needed her back, but he needed her back and under his control.
The stakes are impossibly high, and the deeper you dig, the darker it gets. While Diddy's name dominates headlines, the industry's silence is deafening. How many insiders knew about the abuse? How many executives turned a blind eye to protect their own careers and fortunes? The lawsuits and testimonies paint a damning picture of an entertainment empire built on coercion and control. Cassie's harrowing account of freak-offs, where she was allegedly forced to participate in intimate acts while Diddy watched and directed, isn't just a shocking revelation, it's a glimpse into a systemic pattern of exploitation. These weren't isolated incidents. They were recurring events orchestrated with chilling precision. Alleged victims describe a culture where power was wielded like a weapon and compliance was enforced through fear and intimidation. And then there's TLC, the group that stands as a symbol of defiance in an industry that thrives on silence. In the mid-1990s, TLC was riding high on the success of their album, which generated an astonishing $75 million in revenue. But while their music dominated charts worldwide, the group was living a far grimmer reality. Each member, Tion, Tiba, Lopez, Lisa, Left Eye Lope, and Rosanda Chili Thomas, received just $50,000 checks. They were multi-platinum superstars, yet they drove beat-up cars and lived in sparsely furnished apartments. The betrayal was devastating, and it set the stage for one of the most dramatic confrontations in music history.
Well, the things that I experienced with him were monster-like. That stuff almost destroyed my life.
What happened next was unprecedented. TLC, led by the fiery and fearless Left Eye, decided to take matters into their own hands. They didn't consult managers or lawyers, they didn't file lawsuits. Instead, they stormed the offices of Arista Records, demanding answers. Clive Davis was in a meeting with Diddy when TLC arrived, flanked by a crew of intimidating ex-con women Left Eye had met during her time in a diversion center. The group spread through the building, seizing awards, promotional materials, and anything bearing their names. One member of their crew stood guard outside Davis's office, blocking anyone from entering or leaving. Inside, TLC confronted Davis directly, laying bare their grievances and demanding justice.
Referred to me as Wild King Nights. And what a Wild King Night was when him and a guest would go to a hotel room or be at his home, his bedroom, and they would have intimate gatherings. I would have to go and prep that hotel room, which consisted of baby oil Astroglide.
For Diddy, the incident was humiliating. He was forced to abandon his meeting, watching as TLC took control of the narrative. For Clive Davis, it was a wake-up call. He had two choices: press charges and risk a public relations disaster, or negotiate quietly and hope the storm would pass. He chose the latter, and while TLC didn't walk away with all the money they were owed, they succeeded in shaking the industry to its core. Their audacity sent a clear message. They were not just artists, they were fighters, and they would not be silenced. The aftermath of TLC's rebellion rippled through the industry. At Arista, security measures were tightened. Even artists had to undergo pat-downs and sign-ins to access the building. The label was on edge, its executives wary of another uprising. Clive Davis never looked at TLC the same way again, and Diddy, who had witnessed the chaos firsthand, was left rattled. Years later, Chili's reaction to a joke about Diddy going to jail would reignite speculation about the true depth of her knowledge. What did she know about Diddy's world? What secrets had she uncovered during her relationship with Usher, who as a teenager had been sent to live with Diddy in New York? The answers remain elusive, but the implications are chilling.
It was like, wow, for Diddy? Diddy? What? You know, that was a person that I looked up to. He was a mogul, and I listened to all the artists that he made superstars. And so to have a chance to be able to be signed to him, it was amazing. It was like, oh my God, I'm here. I finally did it.
This story isn't just about TLC or Diddy. It's about an industry that has thrived on exploitation, where power dynamics are skewed and accountability is rare. It's about the courage of those who dare to speak out, even when the odds are stacked against them. And as the revelations continue to unfold, one thing is clear: the music industry's darkest secrets are finally coming to light. This is just the beginning. Stay tuned. So the story doesn't stop here. If anything, it only gets darker, more twisted, and more shocking. As we dig deeper, the revelations about the industry's most powerful figures become impossible to ignore. Sean Diddy Combs may have been the face of the recent scandals, but the cracks in his empire are exposing something much bigger: a system built on control, secrecy, and exploitation. It's a web that stretches far beyond one man, and as the lawsuits pile up, so do the disturbing details of what really went on behind closed doors.
The feds, Al Capone style, have not charged everything under the sun. They've charged three main charges: racketeering, trafficking, and the transport of a. And I'll tell you, I don't know about the racketeering charge. It's pretty sweeping, and I'll tell you what the general element.
Let's talk about the so-called freak-offs, a term that has become synonymous with the allegations against Diddy. According to court testimonies and insider accounts, these were no ordinary gatherings. They were carefully orchestrated events designed to assert dominance and control. Victims have described being coerced into intimate encounters that lasted hours, sometimes days, often under the influence of substances they didn't willingly take. One alleged victim recounted how she would need IV fluids to recover after these events, her body pushed to the brink. Another chilling detail: the presence of cameras. Diddy, according to multiple sources, would record these encounters, later referring to the footage as blackmail material. The implication is clear: no one walked away from these events without a leash around their neck.
He cornered me. And then he asked me, with his arm up, he asked me, "How you doing?" I'm kind of like, wow, what the heck? Very uncomfortable. And then he rubbed his hand down my breast. He said, "If you need anything, anything at all, you let me know.
One of the most harrowing stories comes from Cassie Ventura, the R&B singer who spent over a decade in a relationship with Diddy. Cassie's allegations against him are both shocking and heartbreaking. She claimed that during their time together, she was subjected to physical aggression and forced participation in these so-called freak-offs, all while being emotionally manipulated and threatened with the release of compromising footage. Cassie's lawsuit was settled quickly, but it opened the floodgates for others to come forward. Some of these stories date back decades, painting a picture of a man who used his power and influence not just to build an empire, but to control those around him in the most disturbing ways imaginable.
The question is he a criminal? Is he basically akin to a mob boss running several criminal enterprises? And while it's very clear to me he is a depraved, disgusting person, we have to prove that he violated the law.
But Diddy wasn't alone in this. The lawsuits and testimonies suggest a network of enablers, assistants, bodyguards, and industry insiders who turned a blind eye or actively facilitated these events. One former employee described how he was instructed to recruit people for these gatherings, often using promises of career opportunities as bait. Others have spoken about the culture of fear that surrounded Diddy, where questioning him or refusing his demands could mean the end of your career, or worse. And then there's the curious case of Brendan Paul, a 25-year-old alleged associate of Diddy who was arrested during the recent raids. Law enforcement sources suggest he may have been used as a pawn in a much larger game, with investigators hoping to flip him for information on Diddy's operations. If true, it raises even more questions about who else might have been involved and how deep this conspiracy goes. And what about Clive Davis? His role in Diddy's rise to power is now under renewed scrutiny. For years, Davis was seen as a mentor to Diddy, a guiding hand who helped him navigate the music industry, but recent allegations suggest their relationship may have been far more complicated. Suge Knight's explosive claims about Davis and Diddy's closeness have reignited old rumors, and while Davis himself has denied any wrongdoing, the whispers won't go away. There's even talk of a secret vault, allegedly containing compromising material on artists and executives alike, used to maintain control and silence dissent. If true, it would mean that the music industry's most powerful figures have been operating with impunity, protected by a web of secrets and lies.
And her and Clive had a fight 2 days before. And from what I was told, Bobby Christina was present for some of that fight.
But what makes this scandal even more terrifying is the sheer scale of the alleged cover-up. Federal investigators have hinted that Diddy's empire may have operated in a way eerily similar to other infamous cases like Jeffrey Epstein's. According to one insider close to the investigation, authorities are reportedly building a case that centers around allegations of interstate coercion and trafficking. This same unnamed source suggested that Diddy's private jet logs, which span years, may hold key evidence of cross-state activities that connect him to more than just his accusers. Speculation is mounting that the raids on his homes were not just about finding incriminating footage, but uncovering a much wider network of enablers, including staff, associates, and even prominent figures who may have attended these gatherings.
How many people came through his orbit? How many people could this have happened to? And how did he get away with it for so long?
Even more chilling are the resurfacing stories of Diddy's infamous Puppy Flavor Camp, the alleged training ground for young artists sent to live with him during the early stages of their careers. Usher's vague yet unsettling comments about wild things he witnessed while living with Diddy as a teenager have left fans speculating for years. But now those comments feel more like a warning. Former employees of Bad Boy Records have also started to open up, anonymously of course, about what they saw during the label's heyday. One ex-staffer described Diddy's parties as nothing short of debauchery and expressed regret for not speaking out sooner. "We were told it was just the lifestyle," the insider explained. But looking back, it was something else entirely. There were people there who shouldn't have been and things happening nobody wanted to talk about. And then there's the question of Diddy's charitable efforts and public image. Over the years, he cultivated a reputation as a philanthropist, donating millions to schools and communities, launching educational initiatives, and funding scholarships. But as more details emerge about his alleged private behaviors, many are asking whether his public generosity was a calculated move to distract from the darkness brewing behind the scenes. Critics now wonder if his philanthropy was a shield, a way to build goodwill that would discourage people from questioning his actions. It's a pattern we've seen before, the public-facing persona versus the private reality, and it leaves us wondering who else might be hiding behind the mask of respectability. And then there's the eerie shadow of past tragedies that seem to echo through this story. Whitney Houston, Lisa Left Eye Lopes. Both women were closely tied to the industry's most powerful players, and both met untimely ends under circumstances that still raise questions. Whitney's struggles and eventual passing were widely publicized, but her connection to Clive Davis and the rumors of what she may have known remain a topic of speculation. As for Left Eye, her demise in a car crash in Honduras has never sat well with those who knew her. She was outspoken, fearless, and unafraid to challenge the status quo. In the months leading up to her passing, she had been vocal about her dissatisfaction with the industry and her desire to expose the truth. Was her demise truly an accident, or was it something more sinister? The timing, for many, is too coincidental to ignore.
Did you at any stage think I may never sing again?
I never thought I wouldn't, or I couldn't. I just didn't want to.
And what about the broader implications of all this? The music industry has long been criticized for its culture of exploitation, but these revelations could be the tipping point. If the allegations against Diddy, Davis, and others are proven true, it would mean that some of the biggest names in entertainment have been complicit in a system of abuse that spans decades. It raises uncomfortable questions. How many other artists have suffered in silence? How many careers were destroyed to protect the reputations of the powerful? And perhaps most chillingly, how many people knew what was happening but chose to stay quiet? The silence from the industry is telling. Despite the mounting evidence, very few high-profile figures have spoken out against Diddy or the allegations. Some say this is because of fear. Fear of retaliation, fear of being implicated, fear of losing everything. Others suggest it's because the industry is so deeply entrenched in this culture that exposing one person could bring down the entire house of cards. Either way, the silence is deafening and speaks volumes about the priorities of those at the top.
They saw evidence in the case. They immediately honed in on racketeering and they started saying, why is this racketeering with one guy? And they're charging this one guy. They had a real problem with that. They did not have a problem with the Mann Act. They found him guilty on the Mann Act. And they hung 6-6 on record.
And yet, amidst all this darkness, there's a glimmer of hope. The courage of women like Cassie, who dared to speak out despite the risks, has inspired others to do the same. The ongoing investigations, the lawsuits, the testimonies, they're all steps toward accountability. But make no mistake, this is just the beginning. The road to justice is long, and the forces working against it are formidable. As we wrap up this story, we're left with more questions than answers. What will happen to Diddy's empire as the investigations continue? Will Clive Davis face consequences for his alleged role in all this? And most importantly, how many more victims are out there waiting for their chance to be heard? This is a story that goes beyond music. It's about power, corruption, and a fight for truth in an industry that has thrived on secrecy for far too long. One thing is certain, the music industry will never be the same again. What do you think? Are we on the brink of a reckoning, or will the powerful find a way to silence the truth once again? Let us know your thoughts, because this story is far from over. Stay tuned.